Welcome. My name is Brian Darmody, and I'm hoping it's a sunny day where you are. And we want to thank all of you who have signed up for our webinar. The Academy Awards are just a few weeks away, so that's why we picked that song from La La Land, which was the winner of 6 Academy Awards. And speaking of La La Land in Los Angeles, LA Port was one of the 60 regional challenge Build Back Better winners across the US. And we'll be talking about those during the course of this conversation. So my name is Brian Darmody. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of AURP. Next slide. So AURP is a global nonprofit representing research parks, innovation districts, and regional tech hubs in 42 states, and the companies building those parks. So I want to thank our annual sponsors. As I said, we are a nonprofit. We get our revenue from members and sponsors, and these are our annual sponsors. They represent research parks, innovation districts, regional tech hubs across the US, as well as companies building our innovation districts. Next slide. So the world's first research park was at Stanford University in 1951. The famous Silicon Valley hadn't been built yet. There were orchards around Stanford Research Park, and the president and dean of engineering wanted companies to locate near there. And that model of creating public-private partnerships, and here you see the city of Palo Alto with representatives from Stanford University as one of the first public-private partnerships to build an innovation hub, in this case in California. And that model has grown across the US and around the world, as you see innovation districts and research parks growing in many, many parts of the US and many parts of the world. Next slide. So as I said, we are a nonprofit. We have offices in the Washington, DC area, as well as at Arizona at the University of Arizona Tech Park. Jobs and companies are located in our parks, as well as technology centers across the US, Canada, and 13 countries around the world. Next slide. So these are some examples of some of our members. You can see universities, hospital systems like Children's National, developers, brokers, universities, financing entities. All of them are necessary to help build a regional ecosystem. Next slide. So these are our members. As you can see, we're scattered across the United States and in Mexico and in Canada. Next slide. So these are some examples of groups that are involved with AURP last year. So we have biotechnology intermediaries like BHI out of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We have research universities. We have the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So we cover a broad set of assets that all form regional ecosystems across the country. Next slide. So we range from places like Harvard is building an enterprise research campus next to its main campus, to Montgomery Community College in Maryland, which has an innovation complex that's focused on biotechnology and biotechnology training in Montgomery County, Maryland, near a lot of federal labs, including NIH. Next slide. So a number of our parks are also sponsored by counties. So you have Innovation Park in Tallahassee with Leon County, Neo City with Osceola County in Florida, Arrow Park which is sponsored by St. Mary's County in Maryland. That's been a growth area for us. Typically AURP used to just be exclusively universities, but now hospital systems, counties, cities, and communities are all growing innovation districts. Next slide. And one of our newest members, and we want to welcome Jobs Ohio to the AURP community. And through Jobs Ohio and the governor, they have 3 innovation districts across Ohio, the Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. And we want to welcome them as one of our premier sponsors for AURP in 2022. Next slide. And some of the theoretical underpinnings of the regional innovation hubs that you'll be hearing from our friends from EDA in just a bit were really formed with some thoughts that were developed through a book called Jumpstarting America with Jonathan Gruber and Simon Johnson from MIT. Jonathan spoke at our AURP conference in Salt Lake City last October, and it was a great discussion of where innovation can happen, not just in Silicon Valley, as you saw earlier, where the first research park was developed, or in Boston, but across the country. And I think you'll see a theme during this webinar about how many communities can be developed into regional technology hubs. Next slide. And indeed, this is a map that shows the winners of phase 1 grants for the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. That map looks a lot like the map I showed you of the AURP members. We're scattered across the US, and through the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, you can see there was great geographic diversity in the winners of those phase 1 grants. Next slide. So why is AURP? Why did we pay a lot of attention to the Build Back Better program? For those who won, who will win phase 2 implementation grants, and of course that will be decided later on in 2022, funding can be used for a number of purposes, but of interest to AURP is business incubators and accelerators, technology-based facilities, wet labs, science and research parks are among the eligible phase 2 implementation grants of between $25 million to $100 million that EDA will be awarding later on this year. Next slide. So with that, I'm hoping, I would like to introduce Craig Bersati. He's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Regional Affairs, and he's gonna, he has to leave by around 2:25 today, but he agreed to come on and talk a little bit about Build Back Better and about other programs the EDA has. So welcome, Craig, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Brian. Always a real pleasure and always fun to connect with this group. Regrettably, I'm coming to this team during a moment in many teams' operations that might be somewhat disappointing or frustrating. I know there was just such a tremendous amount of really great strategic, impactful work that went into so many proposals across the nation, and it was unprecedented for EDA to receive such enthusiasm and participation in our programming, with 530 total coalitions participating in phase 1 for Build Back Better, which made it hard for us to reach as many people as we might normally in a competition. So it was competitive, but the good news is, despite some of the immediate near-term hard news that we had to deliver, EDA has been at regional economic development for its entire 56-year history. We have been building facilities and science and research parks and supporting programming in entrepreneurship and commercialization, supporting investment funds in the venture capital and angel fund space. And in more modern times, we've been supporting experimentation in the workforce development space and helping communities and regions address STEM talent shortages. The list goes on and on, but hopefully with that collection of projects or strategies, you're getting the visual that we absolutely have been in the business of supporting research parks, innovation centers for decades. And the enthusiasm around Build Back Better has been wonderful. I think it has coalesced the industry and revitalized a lot of coalesce the industry, our industry that is, to revitalize some of the important thinking and strategies around true cluster-based economic development. That's a great outcome. And also a great outcome that I see is some of the new partnerships, the new regional plans, strategies, and projects that were identified or designed and developed as part of the application process. And to my earlier point around the tough news that we had to present to many organizations of not being able to select, the good news is that, like I said, we have been around for 56 years. I anticipate continued annual appropriations and continued great work ahead. So pleased to share this administration is not only supported EDA in its creative launch and release of its American Rescue Plan programming, but has proposed increasing our budget and across a number of programs. While we are operating under a continuing resolution right now, the one highlight that I'd like to share is EDA's Build to Scale program that works to build regional economies through scalable startups, that supports entrepreneurship, tech commercialization, and access to critical venture funding. That program right now, different marks have it between 38 million to 50 million this year. So once Congress comes to a resolution and conferences and agrees, I hope that will fall. I anticipate we'll fall somewhere in the middle, perhaps. But that would be a nice bump from previous years. We continue to support. Actually, before I segue, I'll also share on top of that the STEM Talent Challenge. This is a program that we have recently started. We're going into its third year now, that works to support innovative ways to develop and support STEM career pathways in a region to help communities strengthen their workforce competitiveness. And I think we're hearing a little bit later from some of the University City Science Center's leadership. They've been an early creator and disruptor with the STEM Talent Challenge. So they're a grantee of ours there, doing some awesome stuff, building an inclusive STEM talent pipeline across the Philadelphia region. So if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, commercialization, access to capital, and perhaps the workforce training needed to support some of that regional innovation, I really encourage you to check out our core programming around the Build to Scale program and the STEM Talent Challenge. Now, as part of the Build Back Better competition, we were really trying to invest in the places and building the facilities and structures where innovation and businesses can thrive. That complements our core portfolio of work in economic adjustment and assistance and public works programs, which again are part of our annual programming. And I anticipate, and I know with great confidence, we will continue to run and support. So if you've gone through that process and think you have, if you've gone through the Build Back Better phase one process and are excited about some of the facilities and places you're looking to support in building and growing, I think we, of course, as always for EDA, as long as there's a connection to clear economic development impacts That's jobs, that's private investment, and other key factors like firm creation, FDI, et cetera. I think we should have a conversation. Build Back Better was an amazing partnership generator for the regions and for the regions that participated, but equally for EDA. We have a number of newcomers that are interested in the portfolio. And as we progress through our American Rescue Plan programming and different milestones and phases with Build Back Better, I guess the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, that is, my message today is don't forget that we've been around for 55 years supporting regional economic development. And I hope that no matter the outcome of phase one or phase two, perhaps we have some finalists on this call today, we're here to do business. We're here to help our regions navigate an ever-changing dynamic economy. I hope that someday we can work ourselves out of a job and all regions prosper and have diverse, resilient economies, but my guess is that probably won't be the case. So whether it's the next natural disaster or perhaps a manufacturing or a major employer shutting down in your region, or the opportunity to help you transition from one sector to another, EDA is here to do business both across our American Rescue Plan programming and our core programming. I hope we can find ways to collaborate together. Brian, that's my main message today. Hopefully that
Do you have time to take a couple of questions?
Please, I was hoping I'd get them. Thank you.
Yeah, so and if anyone would like to put a question in the Q&A, hopefully we'll get to them, but I have a couple. So yes, and wow, you have 530, and that must have been an amazing job to go through all those. I don't know if many folks from EDA had a Thanksgiving dinner or not, because you guys have been probably working really hard. But and I am surprised, not surprised, but it's interesting that over half were brand new applicants or hadn't received an EDA grant. So these are not the folks that are used to doing EDA grants. So I think you brought in a whole new class of folks that potentially can benefit from EDA programs. But, I looked at it, and I know for phase two applications, they can change up. So for folks who maybe submitted one in phase one, what would you say to them in terms of speaking with the phase one winners in their jurisdictions? Can you actually add in, augment the programs that you submitted in your phase one applications? Or I don't know if you can speak to that level of detail, but is that possible for when the phase one winners submit their phase two applications?
Yeah, it's a really great point. And I think I'd like to come at this from two angles. One, this was designed as a phased effort to acknowledge the need to mature the strategies over time. So those that did receive the designation as a finalist, we are closely, we're working with and collaborating with a national technical assistance provider that is forming a community of practice around these 60 regions for practice sharing, strategies, partnerships, et cetera. And we're also working closely at the technical level, making sure, for example, that there's compliance in engineering and environmental considerations where there might be building facilities proposed, et cetera. A lot of diligence needs to happen, and during that process, we might identify more impactful strategies, or regrettably, I expect we might discover some that problematic. We might have to retool. The good news is that we're expecting that, and that's what this process is about, to improve the readiness and viability and competitiveness of these programs. And I hope we can also do that through looking across our regions and seeing who else might have participated in phase one, but maybe didn't succeed, and how can we strengthen these proposals in a way that truly meets the heart and the spirit of the program, which is to execute place-based, cluster-based economic development and helping the citizens of a region benefit in their economy. That being said, more bluntly put, I anticipate some improvement happening within the core recipients. And I think also some of that improvement and strengthening may come from those that were not selected. We know that across the nation, when we announced the intention, when we announced the candidates or the applicants themselves early on, we immediately saw some collaboration before even making the awards, which was fantastic. So I hope you all are doing that. Now, one quick caveat: we do wish and must comply with some guardrails, which is we can't disrupt an entire application and move, let's say, an ag tech cluster, a group of projects to focus on bio or pharmaceutical. We need to stay with the spirit of the original applications, of course.
Understand, and I know you have to leave, but I have a couple of specific questions here. So a quick question about adding funds to support faculty. For coalitions that included research facilities, can we use funds to add faculty in phase 2?
Yeah, I think that is a frequent expense that we do allow in many of our programs. Faculty are critical to supporting technology commercialization or mentoring students in entrepreneurship programs that we've supported and much more. Of course, always mention that this is a great question to talk in depth with the team members that are,
your local EDA rep, which every state has one. So yes, a lot of these questions do require that. But so we do have another question about what about the impact of remote work from anywhere affecting clusters? I mean, did you see that, and what's your response to that?
We didn't see a ton of it. It was there for sure, but in maybe a variety of ways where certain communities had seen a shift in presence in certain areas, whether that's the impact on downtown metros and where remote work has impacted some of the local commerce and what have you. And then others, and there was just a need to address some diversification and new economic activity strategies or supportive strategies. Others were more directly addressing the remote work as an embracing it. Maybe it's in rural communities that have seen a surge in new residents that are now remote working in different locales. Yes, definitely are seeing that and are welcoming that where it's a part of your economic development conversation.
Okay, I know you have a hard stop at 2:25, so I want to, one thing we are looking at AURP is, the U.S. Innovation Competition Act has penciled in a lot more funds for regional innovation hubs. It's authorization, it's not appropriation, so it merely suggests that Congress may be funding these and giving this additional funds to EDA. For those of you who are disappointed phase 1 grantees, I think this is just the start of a long program. So I know, Craig, you can't speak to that because that's Congress, but I pay attention to that, and I think there's bipartisan support for these kind of programs that we've seen.
Yeah, Brian, on that, I'd just like to comment that I think a personal ask as we all endeavor to grow and mature this work in this moment in our economy, I think that it's really important for all of us to look at what we've learned from the coalition building and the efforts that we all executed the last few months in this Build Back Better regional challenge effort. I think in many ways it's very reflective of some of the legislation being discussed around the corner. Either way, if some of this does pass, I hope the industry writ large is better prepared for something like that. And if the legislation does not pass, I think we'll still be all better off for the lessons and the practices uncovered this last year. So definitely thinking about our entire industry right now is in kind of a readiness phase as we prepare for something like that. Not just for the legislation itself, but the need for this type of work. And I have one more shameless plug. 56 years of this work. Team, please don't focus exclusively on just the big things like Build Back Better. We're here to support your regional planning. We're here to support infrastructure projects of all type that lead to economic development. We want to support entrepreneurship, commercialization programs, access to capital efforts, and much more. Take a look at ADA if you haven't before. Would love to collaborate in some way.
And those conversations should go mostly through their local state EDA rep, correct?
Yeah, if you can go to the contact us page on EDA, every state has a dedicated economic development representative, or EDR as we like to say, and those are great first points of contact, our front-facing customer service experts who navigate all sorts of economic development strategies across their respective states, and are not just an asset on EDA programming, but because of the work they do at the local level, are very knowledgeable and well networked at the state level.
Great. Well, thank you, Craig. That was very helpful. And I know this is a busy time for you guys, so thank you for taking some time, and we appreciate it. And say hello to Team EDA on behalf of
Thank you, Brian. Pleasure being here. Talk soon.
So we're now going to move into some discussion with some existing regional tech hubs that across the country. And with that, I think our first speaker is going to be Scott Levitan from.
Good afternoon, everybody. Or good morning for those who are still on the West Coast. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Craig, if you're still on. The Triangle Region North Carolina Biotechnology Center was the recipient of one of the Build Back Better grants, and we look forward to moving forward with that. I think Bill Bullock from NC Biotech Center is actually one of the participants in this seminar, so he'll keep me honest today. I was going to talk a little bit about, I was asked to talk a little bit about the history and our strategies for Research Triangle Park. I'm going to share my screen. Indulge me for 1 second. Okay. How does that look?
We can't see it.
You cannot see it.
No.
That's not good. I push share. Sorry, everybody. Let me try it again. So, oh, okay. There we go. How's that? How's that?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, great. So, again, thank you for the invitation. I'll give you a little, thank you, Kevin. I'll give you a little history about RTP and what we're doing to really create the infrastructure for collaboration within the Triangle region. We're 61 years old. Brian started with an introduction about Stanford Research Park. It's interesting, Stanford was the progenitor for the second and third parks in the United States. One of them is Cummins Research Park in Huntsville, Alabama, and the other is Research Triangle Park. We were founded about the same time, and our models for how to do a research park and what we're trying to do for our region are similar. It harkens back to a period in North Carolina history that the economic core of North Carolina was actually in what's called the Triad region, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point. We all know those names because one is cigarettes, one is textiles, and one is furniture. And those three pillars or legs of the stool of the North Carolina economy were all failing at the same time. So the business leaders, the business center leaders from the Triad heard about this thing called Stanford Research Park. They went out there, they said, we want to do that in North Carolina. And they were very, visionary. They weren't, they didn't say, we're going to try to make this happen in the Triad. They said, where do we have resources, academic resources that can match and generate research as was happening at Stanford? And so they created this idea of the triangle, which is anchored by 3 tier 1 institutions, not in any order of preference because they're all on our board, but North Carolina State University, Duke University, and UNC Chapel Hill. Since then, we have added 2 additional institutions onto our board. One is North Carolina Central University, which is a HBCU, the closest university to the park, and RTI International, which was a sister organization that was founded at the time we were founded to do sponsored research. I'm the dumb end of the dumbbell. We're about real estate and creating the environment, and RTI is our intellectual superior. So we were founded with 3 based on this mission, facilitate collaboration between the universities, promote cooperation between the universities and industry, and then create an economic impact for the citizens of North Carolina, which really is the driving, it's what gets us up every morning. It's not just about the triangle, it's about the whole state. We're about 7,000 acres, which is half the size of Manhattan Island. There are 55,000 current employees in RTP and 300 established and startup companies. And at the bottom, you can see the top industries in our region, which really is a differentiator for the triangle because we're not just biotech, we're not just ag tech. We really have great strength in multiple disciplines. Now, so I've been here 5 years, and I was brought here for 2 reasons, 2 major reasons. One, to create a business plan for the Research Triangle Foundation, which administers the activities of the park. And we did that. I'll talk about it in a second. The other was to build this project called Hub RTP, which I'll also show you where we are on that. We have had a phenomenal last 2 years, actually probably the best years ever for RTP. These were the $4.5 billion of announcements and 7,700 jobs that have been announced since the beginning of COVID. So there's something in the water in the triangle that is convincing these companies to make investments, significant investments in RTP in the region. So we're a little bit out of order, I'm sorry, but I'll come back to that slide. When I got here, I had come here from initiating a research park in East Baltimore, and I learned a lot about equity in communities and a disinvestment that had occurred in the case of East Baltimore, a Black American community in East Baltimore, and our board got on board to adopt an MWBE participation program, which is modeled on the Durham County MWBE program. I'm happy to say that when we got here, our benchmark 5 years ago was we were at half a percent MWBE total. Here you can see as of just recently, we're at 31.4% in terms of contracting and services. We still have a ways to go on Black participation in our contracts, but we've made a lot of progress, and we're very proud of the progress we have made. We have to walk the walk if we're going to be successful and if we're going to build a successful North Carolina for all of its residents. We do have a project which we've undertaken, which is called Hub RTP. It's a pretty phenomenal investment. We have certainly bet the whole farm on this project. RTP was founded under a model that Research happened in commercial campuses. Those campuses wanted to be protected. And so our zoning, our covenants, all are based on this idea of campuses behind the pine trees with a protected gate. Clearly in 61 years, that whole model for research has changed. It's collaborative with universities, it's collaborative among companies, it's collaborative across markets. And there's a huge, in order to make those companies successful, there's a lot of, in addition to collaboration, there's competition for talent. And so we have undertaken the foundation as a service provider for all of RTP to build the first town center that RTP has ever had. It's 100 acres, which are dedicated specifically for mixed use development. It's the only acreage in the park that is available for mixed use development. And you can see the program here on the side. It's a huge investment. It's about $1.5 billion total. But to get the infrastructure done, just to get the platform upon which this is going to get built, it's a $105 million investment made up. $20 million came from Durham County. And when it's completed, this project will actually be 4.5% of the GDP of the county, which is pretty significant. Our companies wanted this project to happen so much that they taxed themselves $10 million over 10 years to help with the infrastructure. And we have dug into our corpus for $70 million. Some of that will be reimbursed from land sales, but not all of it. And we held our nose and we dove in on doing this infrastructure project. So you can see here, it's 100 acres. I'm going to talk about what's happening in the Frontier campus in a minute, but on the east side of this image, you can see it's a transit-oriented project. It's transit-oriented for, honestly, the paltry public transportation that we currently have in the Triangle region, but we're building in plans for the connection to our commuter rail, our bus rapid transit that will connect all four of the major metropolitan areas of the Triangle region. Cary is now part of the Triangle, and it's actually the second biggest municipality in the Triangle. And you can see it is a project that is sustainable based on converting a formerly riprap line open storm sewer, into a recreational park at the center of this project, which really defines it and will create a community for the park. Here's an axonometric of what it'll look like in 2025. We will break ground on the vertical this summer. And then just some images of the kind of environment that we're creating. The foundation, this is not a terrific moment to be embarking on retail development. So the foundation has actually become the equity partner in this 128,000 square foot centerpiece project, which is called Horseshoe. At the center of the project, we have a terrific development partner who does terrific experiential retail, but the equity market was really difficult to be able to pull this off now. So we're making the equity investment in this project. You might ask, where do you get all this money? Well, if we refer back to that original slide of the kind of energy that's been happening in the park for the past 2 years, land values since December 2019 in RTP have escalated from $175,000 an acre to the latest transaction was $780,000 an acre. So we and the board decided to take advantage of that and convert non-productive assets of land into cash that we could then roll into productive revenue-producing investments. These are just some of the projects. And these are some of the amenities, as I mentioned, that will be incorporated into Hub. I did want to skip ahead. In anticipation of Hub, we built a community from about 500,000 square feet of old buildings that IBM had vacated. We call it the Frontier. The Frontier houses 100 of the 300 companies in RTP, and those companies weren't here 5 years ago. So those companies actually have completely changed the culture of RTP because they're entrepreneurial, they're startups, they never really had a place to be in the park. And we're very pleased that they've leased these buildings. We're also pleased because they produce enough revenue for us to have achieved our goal of financial operational sustainability. But as a test for Hub coming up and to get people accustomed to coming to RTP, we built this thing called Boxyard. It opened in May. It's been a phenomenal success. All local merchants. It's an upscale shipping containers, if you hadn't seen it from that image. And this again is a $9 million investment on the part of the foundation to really jumpstart the sense that RTP in the center of our region has finally become a destination place. And you can see here the kind of vendors, the carefully selected, chosen vendors. It's a very diverse group of people, no chains, and we're really happy to help these folks start their businesses. And these are some of the programming that we do in Boxyard. I just wanted to go back to one other slide and then I'll stop. I'm sorry they were out of order, but they probably weren't. Okay, so the other role that RTF has started to assume in the region is to connect our region. Our region is 3 different counties plus 7 halo counties. We have, I think, 39 municipalities within our counties, and funding, as everybody knows, for regional initiatives start at the county, and then somehow we all hope that the counties are collaborating and they'll connect. So when it comes to issues like mobility and transportation, STEM workforce, pipeline development, inclusionary workforce housing, and DEI issues, we have really stepped into the forefront to bridge between individual instrumentalities of government and to help them sort of think regionally about issues like these and others. So I just wanted to share that with the group in terms of we do more than provide a platform for companies and universities to engage in our region. We really are thinking about what kind of a region we want to have, and an opportunity to take advantage of that and build it into the future. So thank you for this opportunity to present.
Great, thanks, Scott. As you can see, research parks are not about the real estate. I mean, it's an impressive. Maybe at the beginning, you know, there was an orientation on real estate at Research Triangle Park, but obviously it has grown, just like many of your parks across the country have been reoriented to, you know, new strategies of engagement, you know, new social goals, all of that. And thank you, Scott. We're going to hold off on questions because we want to give time for our other 2 presenters, and then we'll have questions and for all 3 panelists. So the next one I want to invite up is Tiffany Wilson from University City Science Center. You heard Craig mention some of the interesting things that University City Science Center is doing. They too are breaking the mold on research parks, and with that, I want to introduce Tiffany Wilson.
Great, thanks, Brian. Thanks for the invitation. I'll share my screen here.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Perfect. So hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Wilson. I'm the president and CEO of the University City Science Center based in Philadelphia. Next slide. Am I controlling the slide or somebody else? Because I'm forwarding. Yeah. Great, thanks. So the Science Center was established in 1963, really created to attract scientists and scholars through the formation of the City of Knowledge. And the Science Center has gone through many evolutions, over its history to be able to pivot and support innovation and entrepreneurship as it evolves. And so really has matured today into a catalyst for economic empowerment. If we move to the next slide. The Science Center is a not-for-profit organization, and our shareholders are also not-for-profit organizations. So what's interesting about the Science Center, from my perspective, and kind of coming into this market, is that it encompasses a tri-state region of the leading research institutions and healthcare systems around the region. I joined the Science Center in October 2020, so I'm still relatively new in this market, but we spent 2021 really refining the strategic path for the next decade at the Science Center. And so today, go to the next slide. We have planted a flag in healthcare. Next slide, please. Planted a flag in healthcare for the first time, really, at the Science Center, with a focus on life sciences and health and technology that help progress advances in healthcare innovation. And as a result, very specifically uplifting the community and improving lives. The vision of the Science Center is really, we have historically served as a catalyst for Philadelphia's entrepreneurs, and we want to really continue and double down on that, but to also accelerate technology innovation that addresses society's biggest healthcare challenges. We go to the next slide. So the Science Center is an asset-based, not-for-profit organization, and historically, and I'll get into a little bit more detail in a minute, on the left side, you see our kind of real estate operations that have evolved into the Youth City Square relationship and partnership with Wexford and Ventas. And then, 10, 15 years ago, really started to create a series of programs designed to help foster and support innovation and entrepreneurship within our shareholder institutions and beyond. And so those programs are really coalesced around these 4 critical areas, what I refer to as kind of the tip of the spear, and that's really driving our strategic plan moving forward, is around commercialization. And so we have a series of programs designed to move promising innovations in healthcare and technology to get it to market. We have a new capital pillar that will be making some announcements in the coming months, really focusing though on attracting and deploying capital for diverse founders, startups addressing health disparities and other game-changing medical and health technologies. From a cultivation standpoint, we reimagined STEM for students and adults through hands-on industry-informed education and workforce programming. That was the program that Craig Berstatti referenced, that EDA generously supported in its early development, and that has now been received its first major grant from Department of Education, really looking to be able to scale that in a broader way. And then finally, through our real estate platform, we have the ability and regular activities around convening through events and specific content. So if you go to the next slide, it really kind of focuses on the process around our commercialization activity. So we've got a series of different programs in the team that really helps do 4 things, move first products to market. A lot of these innovations and things that are happening in our universities are really wonderful innovations, but until that it becomes a product that somebody wants to buy repeatedly, the innovation's just not going to be able to deliver the impact. So I really see this as the driving force, to make sure that the startups are positioned right, that they're able to obtain their first revenue, that they grow their teams, and finally raise capital. So moving to the next slide on the capital, this is the new strategic investment initiative at the Science Center, really thinking about capital continuum issues and moving from non-dilutive funding to private sector equity financing. We have a long track record through our commercialization programs in supporting underrepresented minority founders. So consistently over the last 7 or 8 years, our launch lane accelerator class has been majority minority or women led, which is just really inspiring to see. So now we'll be able to engage capital and targeting healthcare solutions that are going to drive economic growth. Next slide. From a cultivation standpoint, so Firsthand is our STEM education platform. We work with middle school and high school students during the school day in a dedicated lab at the Science Center to give them exposure to STEM careers and create a literacy around STEM that really feeds into a pipeline of the blossoming, ever growing, evolving life sciences sector in the Philadelphia region. So that the students, as they come out of middle school, high school, creating an interest in a pipeline towards jobs in this sector. On the other side of that, we've also got a relatively new workforce development program that's also EDA supported, where we work with adults who have a high school degree and really provides training and connections to technical level jobs that are a foot in the door in this growing industry. The way we think about this is how do we leverage the assets of the cluster and the expertise to really provide opportunities for family sustaining careers and long-term generational success. And finally, from a convening standpoint, we are the Philadelphia partner location for Venture Cafe. We also have a quorum space is a large event space. We've got art activities that we and have historically had a gallery that we incorporate into that space as well. It's been, for me, coming into relatively new to the Philadelphia market. I was in Atlanta prior to that. I love seeing people in the space, even, as the stops and starts through COVID, really see the power in bringing people together to address some of these big challenges. So in partners, we've worked with EDA for a long time. They've been a great partner. We unfortunately were one of the non-awarded planning grant recipients, but we're really excited about pathway forward. So we work regularly with government. We're part of the BARDA Drive network. We have increasing more corporate engagement, and then per our shareholders, we've got very strong ties into Penn, Jefferson, Princeton, and CHOP. So I mentioned before, the Science Center was founded in 1963. We're the oldest and largest urban research park. And the last chapter of our real estate story really began in 2015 when we partnered with Wexford Science and Technology and Ventas to expand and redefine what the knowledge community could be. And so since then, Wexford has joined forces with Ventas, and who's a leading investor in university-based research and innovation real estate. And so through these collaborations, UCity Square has emerged as Philadelphia's innovation address. And so if you go to the next slide, kind of shows where we're located. So we're physically located at the intersection of the campuses of Drexel, Penn Medicine, Children's, the Wistar Institute, and adjacent to a spectrum of residential neighborhoods. So we're connected, collaborative, innovative community. We've got a diverse talent pool, just the companies that are springing up and the press releases every day. They're just trailblazers coming out of these top research institutions. And so, oops. So just some quick stats for scale. So we have today about 3 million square feet of office, labs, clinical research, residential and research space. The campus has 17 buildings, 200 businesses, 10,000 people come to work there every day. In addition, under development, we've currently got 1.3 million square feet and 3 buildings, 1 acre public park under development, which represents a $750 million investment. We also have another 1.5 million square feet planned in the next phase of U-City Square. Overall, represent 8 million square feet, will represent the U-City Square community once complete. So if you go to the next slide, our location is at 3675 Market, that you can see on the right-hand side, that is the downstairs of our quorum space that goes up to the event space on the second floor. But we've partnered with CIC on the incubator space. We have housed Amicus and Century and Charisma and Drexel's computing and informatics. So it really is a vibrant community that I've been able to see now come to life in and out of COVID shutdowns. And this is just representative of some of the successes that we've seen. Companies that have operations in our U-City Square buildings have been a resident for a long time, and our team has supported along the way. So you'll see overall that we've got a great platform here in Philadelphia and the greater Philadelphia region. Our concept around Build Back Better is something that we'll continue to move forward with. We formed a coalition really focused on advancing healthcare, healthcare economic opportunity, cracking the code for inclusive growth, with an intentional cluster-based strategy to really focus on building health equity. We've got tremendous regional strengths and capacity around the life sciences sector. And we've seen through COVID, the health equity challenges are here. So we're looking forward to continuing with our network and our trusted partners, and happy to serve as a resource or share ideas with any of you moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Tiffany. That was great. So you heard from 2 mature parks, one urban and one suburban. And so our final presenter is Dan Duncan from the University of Nebraska Innovation District. This innovation district is in a more rural and a younger park, but they are doing great things. And you're going to hear from Dan about all the great things happening in Nebraska. So Dan.
Great. Well, thanks, Brian. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and you're going to hear a little bit about we're a new facility. Relatively, we won't celebrate our 10-year anniversary until this coming November. So we're a lot younger than a lot of facilities around, or the 2 that you've heard about previously. So a little bit about me and my background, because I think it's important to understand, what was wanted to achieve with Innovation Campus. I've worked for the university for 35 years. The first 25 years of that tenure was in the Ag Research Division at the university. I was an assistant dean and director of the Ag Research Division prior to being asked to come over and start Nebraska Innovation Campus. So next slide. So the university had an opportunity. I should probably tell you a little bit about the ecosystem here, because it's pretty unique. So Lincoln is about 300,000 people. It's the state capital. which is important in building some of the partnerships I'm going to talk about. It's the home to the only Tier 1 research institute in the state. You know, it's a state of 1.9 million people. And it's a place where I can pick up the phone and have the governor help us recruit companies if that's needed, which, you know, doesn't happen, especially in some of the higher population states. The Nebraska State Fair had occupied a space in central Lincoln for over 100 years. And it was really a place, you know, for people to come during those 100 years and learn about new innovations, especially in agriculture, and really kind of convene the state. And so when the state fair really kind of outgrew the area and needed a new location, the university was really interested in the property for a research facility. Next slide. And you can kind of see why. So there's a city campus that's really in the heart of downtown Lincoln. It's a very urbanized, landlocked type of campus. And East Campus used to be out in the farm, but now it's pretty landlocked within the city of Lincoln. And then the former state fairgrounds, which is now Nebraska Innovation Campus, started growing those together. And, you know, for what we do and the linkages we have, proximity is really, really important. I think you saw that in the last presentation on the University Science Center, the convergence of all those universities and where the University City Science Center is a huge driver in their growth, and it's a huge driver in our growth as well. So we work on things like transportation routes, like Scott had mentioned. We have bus service from both campuses, bicycle share stations, all kinds of things to make mobility and movement of people within this whole area that you see on the screen, you know, really as easy as possible. Next slide. So we're a lot smaller. We have about 96 acres of developable ground on 160 acre footprint. Our plan is to build out 2.2 million square feet or in that neighborhood over a 25-year period. That would be an average of about 80,000 square feet a year. If you look on the map, you can see kind of the dark red areas. Those are the ones that are developed. The orange outlines are potential future buildings. And then the gray boxes, those are parking structures. And we don't want a building with a sea of parking around it. We want a very densified urban type of environment that leads to collaboration and mixing of people and people moving from building to building easily. Now, you'll kind of see that we had to start in the middle of the campus building out because of some historical buildings that we incorporated from the state fair into the campus, which, you know, drove our infrastructure costs up for the initial buildings, but also gave us the advantage of being able to create that nerve center, that town square, you know, that you saw RTP trying to, or RTP not trying, RTP is developing that area. So next slide. So this is the campus as it looks today. We've got about 570,000 square feet of construction. 115,000 square feet of that is the Scarlet Hotel. That's a Marriott Tribute property that'll be opening here in a couple of months. Like all of our buildings and projects on the facility, it's got a university connection. There's going to be 10,000 square feet of space in that hotel for the hospitality, restaurant, and tourism management program. Large teaching kitchen, classrooms, and faculty offices. So we really try to intertwine programs from the university into almost all of our buildings and everything we do. You can see that we're a little unique in that we have greenhouses, 45,000 square feet of greenhouse space and 3 employees. So, our square foot for employees is a lot different in some of these buildings than other places. So next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we went about building a regional ecosystem. And I think this is really important. We spent a lot of time learning from a lot of people that had been in this business for a long time through our connections with AURP. And, in a small state, partnerships. It's just vitally important because, most of our entities are much smaller than others. We don't have the ability to do everything ourselves. And as we started Innovation Campus, we were going out, we were talking to companies, recruiting companies, and they'd say, oh, someone from Nebraska was just here. And we'd say, oh, who? Well, didn't really know. They didn't remember. They remembered Nebraska. And then we found as we recruited companies in, we'd be selling them on Innovation Campus, and they'd want to know about tax incentives and different programs the state had. So we'd hand them business cards, and we'd say, you can contact them and they'll let you know. And what we found was most of them never contacted them. They left Lincoln without making that contact. So we started by just incorporating the Department of Economic Development into every one of our company visits, having them come out and just spend an hour talking to them about those things. And that kind of led to several other things. And we ended up, we host a monthly meeting here with the people you see on the screen. So the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, Invest Nebraska, which is a quasi-state entity that takes seed investment in startup companies, the Nebraska Business Development Center, New Tech Ventures, which is the university's licensing entity, UNL Industry Relations, Bio Nebraska, the trade association. And then we've brought in others at certain times for different projects. Over the years, we've built a very high level of trust within that group. And it's got to be more than just recruiting companies. We sit down and we talk about, what does the ecosystem need? What are we lacking? And in a minute, I'll show you some of the outcomes of these partnerships have developed. The Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City has a program called 1 Million Cups. I think it's in a lot of communities. I think what's unique for Lincoln is it moves around 4 different locations. One of those is Innovation Campus. Everybody plays really nicely, and it really is about trying to build the ecosystem. And then a lot of the partners that I listed above, we partner in a local accelerator program called In Motion that we've actually partnered with Generator on for the last 2 years of its existence. Next slide. So some of the regional resources, we have a large maker space, 16,000 square feet, full metalworking shop, woodworking, rapid prototyping, art, sewing, quilting, all kinds of different things. That has enabled us to host 4 credit classes from UNL. We have 4 credit classes a semester that meet in that space. We also host a 4 credit class from another local university that's not within the university system. And that space is open to the entire community. Run it much like a rec center with a fee structure. The Biotech Connector, that group I mentioned to you that meets monthly, we decided we needed a wet lab space, a wet lab incubator. We didn't have one. And so we came together with the help of EDA, the university, Invest Nebraska, the Department of Economic Development, Bio Nebraska, and created a space and a management system for this wet lab space. The Combine is our food and ag incubator. It is run by Invest Nebraska. The university, several entities help financially support that. The Combine obtained a build to scale grant from EDA, and so that's helped that program grow. The Sweet Spot is an office area for companies with our food processing center people. We have a large food processing center with a lot of varied equipment. And so small and mid-sized companies come to work on that equipment, and they can office and plan with those food professionals in that space. The Landing co-working space is another space that we have for pre-funded companies. So this is a place where companies can get an address, a mailing address. They can get their mail. We offer meeting space and things. Once they're funded in some manner, whatever that is, they're out. They've got to start paying for at least hot desk space. We have a conference center on the campus that hosts. Before COVID, we were hosting over 40,000 people a year at conferences there. Of course, the Scarlet Hotel will be another place where the community can come to Innovation Campus to enjoy the campus. The Mill Coffee and Bistro was our first restaurant. Great coffee, adult beverages in the evening. The only coffee shop in Lincoln with university Wi-Fi, so we get a lot of student traffic. Get really great to see all of them out here. And then we host a whole host of other events that are community-based. Earth Day, recycling, pickup days. We're a food bank drop-off location. A lot of different things that we can do to try to help enhance the community. As far as the Build Back Better challenge, Invest Nebraska came to us. We were trying to decide about putting in some type of application. We hadn't really hit on anything that we really liked. Invest Nebraska came and said, "Hey, we have this idea. Would you support us?" And we said, "Sure. We won't put one in. We're going to support your effort." And they were awarded one of the planning grants, and so we're deep into a lot of work supporting them, and several of the activities in that grant will happen on Innovation Campus. Just another example of how we build partnerships. Next slide. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dan. So as you can see, there's a great example of an emerging park, but they're punching above their weight. So with that, we have till 3:30. So I'd like to engage in a little Q&A for anyone who's online. If they would put their questions in the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen. And Diana or Vicki, if we could get the other folks up on the screen. So, one thing that the EDA stresses is sort of regional cooperation. So I'm interested in how governance structures, so Dan, you're in Lincoln, but there are other smaller cities and parts of Omaha. Tiffany, you have a number of partners. Do you have a board? Can you talk a little bit about governance structures and how that can be developed in a way that enhances the district, but doesn't become so burdensome that it's a pain in your behind? and same question to Scott. So why don't we start with Dan, since he just finished.
Sure. So we have a board of directors that has both Omaha, Lincoln, and then other parts of Nebraska representation. So that helps and enables us to keep that focus on the wider area. I think it also helps being associated with the land grant institution in that that is a statewide effort through land grants to serve all of the citizens of the state. And so we keep that at the top of our mind in everything we do.
Great. Tiffany, before we have gotten a couple questions about, is this being recorded and will it be made available? Yes, the entire session is being recorded and it will be made available for anyone who's online, or you can send the YouTube link out to others. So Tiffany, can you talk a little bit about, you must have a pretty complex governance structure, since you have uniquely, I think, you have people not from Pennsylvania, but you have folks from New Jersey and Delaware, kind of.
Correct. So right. So we have, I mentioned, we have 31 shareholders that are all also nonprofits, but there's not a requirement that all shareholders be represented on the board. However, there are certainly, we've got some of the larger institutions, Penn Medicine, CHOP, Drexel, Temple, all are represented on our board. We do have a large board, and it's interesting timing around the conversation of governance, because it's something that we've been talking a lot about as an organization during our strategic planning process and kind of moving forward. So I think it's really about having kind of the balance. We do have a large board, and I think it's the right size. And I've kind of gone back and forth on that. In order to really support and drive innovation and entrepreneurship as a not-for-profit, we need a lot of stakeholder engagement. We want people invested in those programs, invested in the future success of the greater Philadelphia region and the industry here. And so we have a lot of different expertise represented on the board, whether it be university, whether it be investors, whether it be real estate, to help us make decisions. And then it's divided into committees. They're very heavy committee work: audit committee, investment committee, governance committee, executive committee. And I see that continuing to evolve as we move forward. Going into 2022, I'm very focused on diversification of the board. And so really kind of revisiting the structure, the makeup, the diversity makeup of the board, from age, gender, race, and experience, that really aligns with the vision and driving forward.
Great. Scott, hopefully you're still there.
I'm still here. Our Wi-Fi bug has returned, so I was getting unstable. I think, what's fortunate for us is that we were really like Philadelphia Science Center. We were really founded to bring together collaboration, and then there are other organizations, particularly in this case, NC Biotech Center, that really is a state organization that happens to be located within RTP. So they took the lead on applying for the initial grant. Their partners include RTI International, at least 2 of the universities, the tier 1s. I know North Carolina Central University and some of the other HBCUs are part of it. And they also have included some of the universities outside of the Triangle region. So, I mean, that's really our core competency. We need to hone it better, and we're working on, it's hard to collaborate among all these people, but we were founded on that principle. And so, like Tiffany, it's not always easy, but the outcome, trying to achieve consensus among people who are trained to think individually and independently, the outcome is usually better. And so I think the award of the grant to NC Biotech Center is an indication that we're making progress and And, you know, we have sort of a unique sauce in the Triangle region.
So Don Smith asked the question about dedicated cluster organizations in each of these parks and efforts. Are there clusters and are they managed through central ops, or, you know, how is that done? You know, one example I know, I think all three of you work with your respective state bio association, whether it's Bio North Carolina, Bio Nebraska, or Bio Pennsylvania. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also any other cluster organizations in other, like ag, for example? I'm looking at Dan, but you know, space science is another one that is growing for some of our parks. So I'll start with Dan. Can you talk about, you know, bio and any of your other cluster organizations?
Sure. So Bio Nebraska is an organization that's pretty active partner with us. I mentioned Invest Nebraska. You know, they're not only a seed investment organization for the state to kind of bridge that gap. You know, they also, you know, are managing an incubator, building other partnerships and things. And so, you know, they've been pretty important to us. I think what's emerged is we've got a small but significant biomedical cluster kind of emerging here as well. And so it's really around ag, specifically ag robotics has been taking off, and then the biomedical cluster.
Tiffany?
I'm muted.
Yeah.
It had to happen, right? It's just consistent with the coded theme. So it was interesting, you know, life sciences is a massive cluster in the Philadelphia region, and certainly all the activity in University City and U City Square. The way I kind of look at the landscape is, you know, and the reason why we've really focused on healthcare, it's not just healthcare technology, it's healthcare as the customer. And so during my onboarding, you know, all the companies that I was meeting, you know, all the logos that I see all over the place, the entrepreneurs, they're all solving, they wake up every day passionate about solving big challenges that exist in healthcare. It's just really the mechanism by which they do it is different. So some are cell and gene therapy, pharmaceuticals, biotech, med device, digital health. And so, but the ultimate market is the healthcare market in some way, shape, or form. So that enables us to kind of build the themes and build capacity around that, where there's the majority of the exercise or the activity, and it helps us focus enough. You know, we have 75 people, a lot of different programs, wearing a lot of different hats. So it's very important, I think, to focus and being able to leverage the assets that you have and to drive the impact and the value there versus trying and then partnering. You know, we're not going to do ag tech unless it's, you know, related to healthcare environment. We're not going to do, you know, aerospace unless it's some kind of medical technology in that space. And so I'd rather partner with organizations that have that deep expertise around the region and around the country, so that, you know, we can really leverage the valuable assets that we have in a lot of these not-for-profit knowledge communities.
Great, Scott?
Yeah, I'll come at it from two ways. I thought the question was about what organizations exist. So technically, the Research Triangle Park has an owners and tenants association that we were found, our model is that companies own their land, or now more and more developers own the land and lease it to the companies. And so they have very significant input on the direction that we take the park. On the research and discovery side, I think it's very interesting to note that RTI International, which really it's $1 billion a year private research organization that is our sibling, last year they posted $5 million to support a grant called Project Forethought The purpose of the obligation of applicants was that grants had to touch at least two of the two institutions in the region. Most of the grants expanded beyond two institutions. And again, it really was, it put money, you know, where we aspire to be, which is to really take advantage of collaboration among researchers and among researchers in the region. So that $5 million was just granted, I think, in early December to one applicant. There were 120 applicants.
Great, all great stories. So with that, unfortunately, we're going to have to close off the questions because we want to close off with a little bit more background on AURP and how you can get involved and close out at 3:30. So I want to take time and thank Dan, Scott, and Tiffany for your excellent presentations. They're going to be recorded. And I think all of them would volunteer if anybody has some questions. You know, feel free to get in contact with AURP and we can put you in touch with anyone that you'd like. And with that, I'm going to ask Diana to bring up some other slides after the question and answer. So as you've heard, no park can do this alone, and you have to be involved with other organizations. So Autumn is going to be meeting in New Orleans, February 20th to the 23rd. That's the Tech Transfer Organization, and I'll be speaking on a panel about building and financing bio-incubators, which a number of the Build Back Better programs were about bio-incubators. Next slide. UIDP, so AURP is going to be on a panel with UIDP in Atlanta, talking about HBCUs. UIDP has a whole 2-day conference. I think it's going to be exciting, and a number of HBCU partnerships were involved in the Build Back Better program. So if you don't know about this, check out the UIDP conference, March 28th to 29th in Atlanta. Next slide. The Federal Lab Consortium. So this is, again, a number of parks, our number of Build Back Better programs involve local federal labs, and the Federal Lab Consortium is meeting April 5th to the 7th in Cleveland, Ohio. So that's a great place to learn more about how you can partner with your local federal labs. I met the International Space Station there. They became an AURP partner, our first orbiting research park in the sky. And one of the things we'll be talking about at Bio is, Tiffany mentioned aerospace. It turns out that research in microgravity on the International Space Station is a growing area. And with the influx of new space platforms, with the private sector building next generation space stations, you're going to see a lot of growth in the bio area taking place in microgravity and new technologies coming out of that. Next slide. State Science and Tech Institute, they helped promote this webinar, and they'll be meeting May 2nd to the 4th in Little Rock. You learn a lot about what other states are doing. It's a great place to pick up great ideas to implement in your state as you build your regional tech hubs. Next slide. IEDC, the International Economic Development Corporation, is meeting in Oklahoma, September 18th to the 21st. Again, EDA is often there, and it's where you meet a lot of your fellow economic development or cluster developers across the country. Next slide. The International Business Innovation Association represents a lot of accelerators and incubators. I didn't see I don't know if they've published their plans yet for meetings in 2022, but that's, again, another organization. If you're not familiar with them, check them out if you're trying to build your accelerator or incubator. Next slide. And UEDA, the University Economic Development Association, again, they work with EDA centers across the country that are based at universities. So feel free to check them out as well. Next slide. Now for AURP. So we are meeting in person February 21st to the 24th in Tempe, Arizona. You can register today. We have a great program touching on many of the topics we just talked about here, but you'll hear from not just the 3 parks you heard here, but a number of other parks that are in different stages. So go online and register for AURP spring training, February 21st to the 24th. Next slide. Then we're going to have Insight into Research Parks. We'll be meeting in person May 11th to the 12th at Delaware, near University City Science Center. We will, if you're interested, come to that event May 11th and 12th. And then next slide, we have our BioHealth Caucus. We will have a number of states, including North Carolina and Arizona, and the Council of State Bio Associations meeting on June 12th to the 13th, where we will talk about biomanufacturing, also biomanufacturing in space, because that's a growing area. Anybody wants to find out more about that, you can feel free to message me. Next slide. And then we're going to be in Toronto, AURP 2022. And this is we have AURP Canada. So we'll be meeting our international conference September 19th to 22nd. Feel free to put that down on your calendar. We'll be coming out with more full program shortly. And so stay tuned for that. And thank you. And these are some of our annual sponsors. Tiffany mentioned Wexford and Ventas. Those are some of our sponsors, but we have many, many others across the country. So with that, I have a quick, for those of you still on, I have you win a $25 gift certificate from Starbucks to answer, whoever answers this question first in the Q&A. Has to be in the Q&A. What group played the song in the movie Bridesmaid? Just name the group that played a song in the movie Bridesmaid. And first person to answer that in the Q&A will win a $25 gift certificate. And no fare going on Google. I see someone's typing an answer, but I don't know if it's the right one. Allison Madden won. Wilson Phillips, that is correct. Thank you. Allison, you get the $25 gift certificate and we will make sure it's sent to you. And with that, if you sign up to become a member of AURP, a new member or a new sponsor, we will send you an AURP beanie or toque, as they call these in California. So feel free to go online and we can tell you how to join AURP. And with that, I think we have a musical ending to our session. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and hopefully seeing some of you in spring training or at other AURP events in 2022. Thank you and have a good day.